Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 2022 District 78 Tall Tales Contest. My name is Wes Shell, and I will be the contest chair today. The purpose of the Tall Tales Speech Contest is to provide an opportunity for speakers to improve their speaking abilities, to recognize the best as encouragement to all, and to provide an opportunity to learn by observing the more proficient speakers who have benefited from their Toastmasters training. Madam Chief Judge, have the judges and all other officials been fully briefed on the rules?
Yes, all officials have been briefed. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. The contestants have been briefed and informed of the virtual speaking area and location of the timer. Members and guests, the contest Zoom master has been instructed to mute all members and guests. You may wish to turn off your video to allow for our speakers to obtain a greater use of available bandwidth. Timers, would you please make one last check of the timing lights, please? Thank you. Protests are limited to judges and contestants. The decision of the judges is final. Announcement of the results is final, and they will be made this evening at our District 78 conference closing ceremony, which will be beginning at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. The contestant's speaking order has been drawn, and the order is 1, Roy Wilcox. Number 2, Christine Glenn. Number 3, Barb Steiner. Number 4 is Brian Logsdon. Number 5, Megan Jeromechek. And number 6, Jeremy Screwness. Contestants are permitted to remain in the room throughout the contest. There will be 1 minute of silence between contestants for the judges to mark their ballots. And during that time, you may quietly enter or leave the Zoom meeting, but please turn off your video. Our timers, one last time, are we ready? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, our first contestant, Roy Wilcox, Hunting with Columbo. Hunting with Columbo, Roy Wilcox.
I named my dog Columbo because he was so clever. You remember the show, the Detective Columbo? He always played like he didn't know what was going on. And then he'd catch the villain. Well, Columbo did this type of thing. For example, going for a walk with Columbo, he would go along and a rabbit would go across the road and into the ditch right beside where we were going to walk, and he'd act like he didn't even see that rabbit. And eventually, as we got right beside the spot where the rabbit went in the ditch, he would turn and pounce on it, get it. Well, you know what most dogs do. They see a rabbit and bang, they're gone. They jerk the leash out of your hand. They don't wait for anything. But Columbo was clever. He knew how to get on top of his prey. What a wonderful dog. But let's go hunting. Let's go hunting pheasants. And I'm going to take you to October of the year when pheasant season begins. And we had a beautiful field to go hunting. We had corn on the right side, a fence line full of weeds, and then further to the left was a hilly area and some trees protruding out, and then there was a little water back there. Well, you got cover, you got food, you got water. Yes, this was the place to hunt pheasants. Columbo and I went hunting. We started down that fence line, and lo and behold, out to the front, on my right side, a bird got up and started coming across. To my left, one got up. They looked like they were on a crash collision course. I pulled up my gun and shot just before they come together, and I got 2 birds with one shot. Wow, that was as good as I've ever done. We continued on down the fence line. And pretty soon I heard a screech. And out of the trees in that hilly area, here come a bobcat flying out and it was on course to land on my neck area and probably get my throat and kill me. But Columbo came in between and jumped up in the air just in time between those feet and grabbed that bobcat and hung onto his throat and severed his jugular vein, and that bobcat was dead. Columbo didn't only hunt pheasants, but he protected his master, and I had the best time. We continued on down hunting, and Columbo was working back and forth, and he pointed, and that's a sign that there's a bird there, and he held. I went up, flushed the bird, shot it. He went and retrieved it, and we had our limit. That didn't take a whole lot of time. It was a half-mile fence line there. So we were continuing down the fence line, want to make a right and go back to the car. Anyway, I could see it would look like the game warden coming. And just about that time, I saw Columbo living up to his name. He was trotting along nice and calm, but he'd seen a rooster go across in front of him and go to the fence line. And he kept trotting along nice and calm. And he jumped over and grabbed it. He had that pheasant. Oh no. 2 in the crisp-fire, 1 straight ahead. I had my limit. If the game warden saw me with 4 pheasants, you know what I'd get. I'd get a fine, I'd lose my gun. I couldn't hunt for a year. Columbo, let it go. Let it go. No. He looked at me like I was stupid, but he let it go. We continued on our walk away from the field back to the car, met up with the game warden. Sure enough, 1, 2, 3, we had our limit, nothing more, no problems, nice pleasantry, and a compliment from the game warden. You limited out. And in hunting, limiting out is getting the max birds you can get for the day. Yes, that was a day hunting with Columbo, the clever dog. But Mr. Contest Chair.
Madam Timer, may we have 1 minute for our judges to complete their ballots, please? Our next contestant is Christine Glenn. Christine, can you test your audio?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
We can hear you. Christine Glenn, Tales from the Tree, The Family Tree. Tales from the Tree, The Family Tree. Christine Glenn.
Parts of my family have been in Montana for over 200 years. When you plant a family in a wild and woolly place like Montana, you can grow a pretty colorful family tree. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, I am so excited to tell you a tale from the tree, my family tree. One of the most colorful leaves on our tree was a man I called Uncle Alfred. One day, Alfred and his wife were headed to town to visit his little brother, Johnny. Johnny was my grandpa. Now, what I didn't mention is Alfred was the sheriff of a little town in eastern Montana. They parked his police car in the garage and headed into the house for a chinwag with my grandparents. But before he went in, Alfred told me I could play with the lights on the police car. Oh my gosh, how exciting is that? But what he didn't tell me is that he really didn't like to arrest folks. So he wanted any miscreants to know that he was coming, and his lights were so bright, you could see them all over Montana, Wyoming, and North and South Dakota. When I turned the lights on in that tiny little garage, it was like a supernova had gone off. I was trying to turn the lights off, but instead I turned the siren on. The siren was so loud it blew the roof plumb off the garage. It went so high in the air it almost hit the United flight flying over headed to Denver. It's flight 312. And when it fell back to the garage with a crash, it landed all cattywampus, and there was lights and sound just leaking out all over the neighborhood. I lit out of there like all the hounds of hell were after me. And when I got out and looked back, the garage was pulsating like a giant disco ball. By now, the neighbors were all spilling out of their houses trying to figure out what in the heck is going on. Did the refinery blow up? Is there a forest fire alien invasion? Luckily, my grandpa comes running out and he calms down the neighbors. And Alfred comes out and he calms down his car. And then grandpa lights into his big brother. Alfred, what were you thinking letting a 10-year-old play with a police car? Alfred didn't even get a chance to answer before his wife Minnie chimed in. I'll bet he never told you what he did to me last week. By the time I figured out what was happening, I was ready to send him to meet his maker. Because, you see, Uncle Alfred was a practical joker. The week before, he'd been gutting a deer and he found this big, long piece of gristle. Normally, he'd cut that out and give it to the dog, right? This time, he had a different idea. He cut that big piece out and he shoved it up his nose. Yep, you heard me. And he had a nose like a bull moose. He shoved and shoved and shoved until he had that whole piece of gristle up his nose, except for a little tail hanging down. And then he headed for the house. Minnie, there's something wrong with my nose. Alfred, what is that? I don't know, but it shouldn't be there. And he starts pulling. Alfred, you better stop. Alfred, what is that? Alfred, let's call the doc. Alfred, you're pulling out your brains. The more agitated Minnie got, the faster he went until he had pulled all that gristle out, and it was piled on the floor around all the way up to his knees. Poor Aunt Minnie, she's across the room at this point, her eyes about this big, hands over her mouth, thinking she's watching him give himself a homemade lobotomy. Alfred looked up, saw his wife, and he started laughing. And he laughed so hard he cried, and he cried so hard he made a flood of tears that washed that gristle right out the door. The dog finally got it and ran up the street. And by now, Aunt Minnie, she was cussing, but in a ladylike way, because she's a lady. Alfred Glenn, you are sleeping in the barn until I tell you otherwise. And if I see hide or hair of you, I'm calling the police and I'm going to let them know what really happened up on that mountain. Because you see, that was Uncle Alfred too. The story started with Alfred in an old gorilla suit. And it ended with Alfred in hiding up on Pryor Mountain while Fish and Wildlife, tribal police, and his very own deputy were on the hunt for Bigfoot. True story, folks. True story. I would love to tell you the story of Alfred and the Bigfoot debacle, but that's going to have to wait for another time. Another session of Tales from the Tree, the family tree. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Timer, can we please get 1 minute for our judges to complete their ballots? Our next contestant is Barb Steiner. Barb, can you test your audio, please?
Testing.
We can hear you. Barb Steiner, a trip with my mother's cousin Lucy. A trip with my mother's cousin Lucy, Barb Steiner.
Contest chair, chief judge, fellow Toastmasters. A purple suitcase, a big black crow, evaporating gasoline. These are some of the memories I have of an amazing trip I took last summer with my mother's 88-year-old cousin Lucy. Cousin Lucy may be 88, but she doesn't look a day over 79, and she feels even younger. She says it's due to her drinking a warm can of Michelob Light each night before she goes to bed. Last June, we started out from, oh my gosh, cousin Lucy's hometown in her 1956 Ford with the odometer at about 600,000 miles. Who drove? Cousin Lucy, of course. Our first stop was to see Salami Sue, a 40-foot high fiberglass Holstein cow situated on top of a hill. As we were gazing up at the cow, a purple suitcase fell from the sky and landed on the windshield, shattering it into many pieces, and then it bounced onto the ground. Cousin Lucy said it probably fell from an airplane and that we shouldn't move it, just in case its owner ever came looking for it. After we cleaned up the many pieces of windshield, Cousin Lucy went to the back of the car, opened the trunk, and then opened up her suitcase and pulled out a clear rain poncho, a pair of scissors, and a tube of super grip denture adhesive. She slit the hood off of the poncho and then slid it in half. With my assistance, she secured one of the poncho halves to the windshield frame by using the super grip denture adhesive as a glue. It worked great. After we left Salami Sue, we continued to head west. As we were driving along, a big black crow flew right into the radio antenna, breaking most of it off. Ooh, Cousin Lucy was upset because she really enjoyed listening to her favorite polka and hard rock radio stations. She pulled the car over to the side of the road. The antenna was nowhere to be found. Cousin Lucy went to the back of the car, opened up the trunk, and then she opened up her suitcase and pulled out an umbrella and a pair of pantyhose. She opened the umbrella, and with my assistance, she secured the umbrella to what remained of the antenna. She said that not only the tip of the umbrella, but the tips around the umbrella would pick up different radio stations. Sure enough, when we got back in the car and Cousin Lucy turned on the radio, she found her favorite polka and hard rock stations, plus many more other radio stations. We continued to head west to spend a few days in Melodrama, a famous tourist town which had lots to do and lots to see. After leaving Melodrama, as we were driving along, Cousin Lucy noticed that the fuel gauge showed almost empty. How could this be? She had just put gasoline in the car about 2 hours ago before we left Melodrama. She pulled the car over to the side of the road. We got out of the car and discovered she had forgotten to turn on the gas cap and shut the fuel tank door, and all of the gasoline had evaporated. And it was about 100 miles to the next gas station. Cousin Lucy went to the back of the car, opened up the trunk and opened up her suitcase and pulled out 4 cans of Michelob Light. She opened each can and poured it into the gas tank. She said that the gasoline alcohol mixture would work just as good as ethanol. Sure enough, when we got back into the car, we made it all the way to that gas station and could have made it even farther. What happened next? That's a whole other story. A purple suitcase, a big black crow, gasoline. These are some of the memories I have of an amazing trip with my mother's cousin Lucy.
Madam Timer, could we please get 1 minute for the judges to complete their ballots? Our next contestant is Brian Logsdon. Brian, can you do an audio check, please?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you fine. Brian Logsdon, slip sliding away. Slip sliding away, Brian Logsdon.
Slip sliding away. I love that song. And I love driving. I mean, who doesn't like to drive? We all do. It's something about being in control. But who likes driving on black ice? Oh, no. Why? There's no control when you're on black ice. Well, a couple of weeks ago when we had that quick freeze, everyone's waiting for spring, freeze overnight, below zero. I'm driving across the West Central Bridge. I look over at the river. It's frozen in from both sides. There's just a stream down the middle, and there's geese lining both sides. And it's like, wow, I can't believe the river froze so much. I look up and it's time to turn. I turn quick, and the back end of my truck, whoo, slides away. My heart is pounding. I'm in 4-wheel drive, but you know, 4-wheel drive doesn't keep you from sliding. It just makes you slide better. So the front wheels finally caught, and I shot around that corner. And I'm like, whoa, I don't like being out of control. And I come around the first curve, and there, in the middle of the road, River Drive, is a big Canadian goose. Now, I don't know if he was frozen to the road from the quick freeze or what, but he wasn't moving. And I was about 30 miles an hour. I said a quick prayer for the goose, apologized to the goose's mother, hit the brakes, and started sliding. I was sure there was no way I could miss. Then the front wheels caught, and I shot up. I missed the goose, but I didn't miss the river. Phew, I'm sliding across the ice on the side of the river, and I'm heading for the line of geese that are sitting there. I don't know what they're doing there. I had all kinds of thoughts going through my mind. They weren't all coherent either. I wondered if I should jump out of the truck and land on the ice and let the truck go by itself, or should I roll up the windows and turn the heater on so I could be warm at least while I'm drifting down the highway of the river. And I also was wondering, wow, those geese, why are they on the side of the river? What are they doing? Well, if it's not frozen, it's got to be above 32. So that's warmer than what the air is. They're actually staying warm on the ice. I didn't say my thoughts were coherent. I'm just sliding and thinking all kinds of crazy stuff. And then I'm off the ice and boom, I'm in the river in my truck. I look down. There's no water coming in my doors. It's a pretty tight truck. It's a Chevy Silverado. I'm thinking pretty good. I had this thought flash through my head about, the water rising in the truck and you're trying to grasp for air at the top, but I pushed that one away. It wasn't happening. Then I realized I'm headed for the 9th Street Bridge. And the water's flowing through 2 of the big piers, one on each side of the bridge. And there's another one in the middle. OMG, I turn the wheel like I'm gonna steer in the river. But believe it or not, the truck slowly turns because of those tires turned until I'm facing backwards. Yeah, hey, this isn't too bad. I'm facing backwards and now my front tires have become the rudder for my, boat. It's a Silverado boat now. And I'm steering and I'm looking in the rearview mirror and out the back window, and sure enough, whoosh, I missed the pier. I did. This is working. This is working. And then I remember there's another bridge coming up, the 15th. But I think I got this now. I'm steering with my steering wheel in reverse. You know how it does the opposite when you're going reverse. So you turn left to go right and you turn right to go left. And I got this. I'm headed for there. Piece of cake. Ooh, I went through the next set of piers. Pretty good now. And then I remember there's no more bridges. There's a dam. And I'm going to go over the dam. Oh, man. What am I going to do? Again, those coherent thoughts. Well, in the movies, if a truck comes out and crashes on the back end, it doesn't mess up the engine and the people inside can be okay. So I just lined it up, stayed going backwards. Whoa, I'm over the top. I was weightless for a minute. And, I'm not usually weightless, just saying. And then, boom, boom. And I'm down on the tires and I'm headed down the river again. And the first thought in my mind is, I got to send a Christmas card to the guys that sold me those tires, right? And then I realize again, then there's no more bridges. There's only the next dam and another drop. I can't think I can survive another drop. But I'm going to see Giant Springs Park. And lo and behold, there's an ice fisherman right there on the point. And I'm beeping my horn and I turned around the other way and he gets the picture. I'm like, throw it up, throw it out. And he does, and he throws it out and I grab the line. And sure enough, he's able to reel me in, pulls me to the bank. And that's why I'm here today, singing Slip Sliding Away. Contest chair.
Thank you, Madam Timer. Can we have 1 minute, please, for the contestants to finish their ballots? Our next contestant is Megan Jeromechek. Megan, can you test your audio, please?
Hello, testing. How is my audio?
We hear you great.
Perfect.
Megan Jeromechek, The Adventures of the Great Nellie Bly. The Adventures of the Great Nellie Bly, Megan Jeromechek.
Contest chair, fellow Toastmasters, gather around. Today, I am going to tell you the amazing and often unbelievable story of the great Nellie Bly, an American journalist, industrialist, inventor, charity worker, and traveler. Now, you may have heard of Nellie Bly. You may even know that she traveled the world in record-setting time. But what you don't know is the whole story of her adventures. This is the adventures of the great Nellie Bly. Nellie Bly was born in Pennsylvania in 1864. She became a journalist at a very young age, in part because a male writer had said that working women were a monstrosity, and she wanted to prove that women could do anything. So from that point in her life, she did just that. Her love of reporting and interest in seeing the world encouraged her to take on a new challenge. Inspired by the book, Around the World in 80 Days, Nellie did just that. But no, Nellie Bly did not go around the world in 80 days like Phileas Fogg from the book. She did it in 72. In 1889, at the age of 25, Nellie embarked on her journey. She began her travels by steamship. She traveled on a ship as large as the Titanic, where she crossed the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Asia. The waters were choppy and unpredictable, often with waves as high as small mountains that would rock the ship back and forth. Well, she finally made it to land, and she hopped on her first mode of transportation following the ship. It was an elephant. The elephant was loaned to her as a gift from a friend in Singapore. But this was no ordinary elephant. This elephant was the size of a woolly mammoth with long fur and ears so large that Nellie could wrap them around her for warmth. Now, Nellie made lots of new connections and friends during her travels. Everyone in the city would gather around to hear her speak. Word spread fast when she arrived, from peasants and townspeople to the highest governing powers. She preached of fairness and equality, and she spoke of a revolution for women and minorities. Her ambitions led to laws that were changed and special days that were created to commemorate her amazing achievements. Nellie was someone with a strong will, a passion for taking risks, and creativity. Now, this creativity really came in handy when she hit her first big problem. As she was on many of her train rides, now passing through Germany, her train broke down. She didn't have time to wait for it to get repaired. She needed to move, and quickly. So she decided that she needed a miracle. She needed to fly. So she gathered all the inventors and creators she could find, and together they built a parachute as large as a boat and added straps so she could wear it like a bird. Nellie climbed to the highest cliff she could find, strapped on her parachute, and jumped. It was working. She was soaring through the sky and reached record heights. She maneuvered through trees and flew with flocks of birds as if she was one of them. With her parachute, she was able to fly across multiple countries and make huge progress in her journey around the world. Her parachute landed her in Iceland, where a ferry then took her to Greenland. Now, no one really knows how she crossed the Labrador Sea from Greenland into Canada, but some claim a sighting of a young woman riding a dolphin off the coast of Newfoundland. Now, 72 days into her travels, Nellie made it around the world. She was celebrated with a huge welcome back in New York City. But her accomplishments did not end there. Nellie dedicated her life to telling people's stories, at times even putting her own safety at risk. She was a pioneer in her field and inspired millions of people. But she wouldn't be who she was if it wasn't for her courageous adventure around the world. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the adventures of the great Nellie Bly. who didn't just go around the world in 80 days, she did it in 72. But her legacy must go on. So fellow Toastmasters, I am currently making plans to go around the world, but I'm not going to do it in 80. I'm not even going to do it in 72 days. Well, you have to stay tuned because that will be another story.
Madam Timer, can we please have 1 minute for the judges to complete their ballots? Our next contestant is Jeremy Screwness. Jeremy, can you test your audio for us, please?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We hear you great. Jeremy Screwness. Drop bears. Drop bears. Jeremy Screwness.
I need you to be completely silent. Fellow Toastmasters, contest chair and guests, because I am going to take you on walkabout in my own country of Australia, home to the wildest creatures on planet Earth. You've got the hoppy, lovable kangaroo, the cuddly koala, and she cute. My personal favorite, the wacky wombat. And my favorite wombat is Fatso, the fat-arsed wombat, unofficial mascot of the 2000 Sydney Olympics. And of course, the mighty crocodile. Oh, she bit me. Oh, crikey. You gotta watch out for those ones, mate. But there's some animals, the likes of which the mind of God no man has ever conceived. You've got yourself a hoop snake. Now, this snake is unlike the rattler, where this one can swallow his own tail, turn into a wheel, and roll after his prey faster than any snake can slither. But the one, the only animal to truly strike fear into the heart of us Aussies is the drop bear. That's right. Now, the drop bear is a cousin to the koala, but unlike that harmless herbivore, this cunning carnivore sneaks out onto a branch, and when he sees his prey unsuspecting on the trail below, he drops on him and smothers him with his massive weight. Now, fellow Toastmasters, guess, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, how could a koala, which is a mammal, and a bear, a koala is a marsupial, and a bear, which is a mammal, be cousins? And how is it that an animal that is so light and limber that he can crawl out onto a branch, he's so heavy as he can crush his prey? And the answer to that is simple. Stop thinking about it, mate. Now, you Yanks in America, you have access to any gun you could imagine. You could grab a blunderbuss big enough to take on God Almighty, walk into those woods, and boom! You've got a war mount. But us Aussies in the land down under, we've got to be smart about such things. So the one true fair income way to catch yourself a drop bear is with the Pickle Army. That's right, mate. The German World War I helmet with a spike on its head. And the way it works is this. You strap the Pickle Army onto your noggin, you march out into those woods, and when that drop bear is ready to pounce, and impales himself on the spike on your head. And that's how you catch yourself a drop bear. Now, fellow Toastmasters, all of you Yanks, when you cross the pond and you land your plane in Brisbane, or Cairns, or Sydney, or Perth, you've got to do one thing. You've got to take that mask off your face, and you've got to put your Pickle Army on your noggin. And you might think that the Aussies will think that you're just a couple stubbies short of a six-pack, but that's not how it's going to go. They'll know that you are ready to go and get yourself your very own drop bear pelt. That's right. Ain't she a beaut? Madam, that's your chair.
And Madam Timer, can we now please have 2 minutes of silence for our judges to complete ballots? Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude the competition part of our contest today. I would now welcome you to go ahead and come on video if you would like and congratulate our contestants for a job well done. As our judges move out into their break rooms to finish counting up our ballots, we're going to move into one of my favorite parts of the competition, which is the contestant interviews. Our first contestant today was Roy Wilcox. Roy, would you mind coming back up and joining us, please?
Thank you, Wes.
Great job today, Roy. Can you just introduce yourself, tell us where you're from and what club you're with?
Yes, Wes, I'm in two clubs. The one that I've been in the longest is Yankton 1294 Club. And that particular club I joined back in October of 1980, so 41 years. About 2 years ago, I joined the Mitchell Club. And that's the one that I'm representing today at this contest, is the Mitchell Toastmasters Club.
Very good. Thank you for that, Roy. I guess my first question for you is you talked about your hunting trip, and it's clear to me that you really enjoy hunting, especially bird hunting. Do you and your dog have any plans for hunting trips coming up?
Oh, absolutely. We can't wait till the third weekend in October. That's when pheasant season begins. Actually, the 1st of September is dove season, and that's not as much dog involvement. I love the pheasant hunting because the dog has to go out and work for you, and it's just fun to see them going after birds, pointing them, retrieving them, flushing them up, whatever. It's my thrill in the fall and thing that I do with my son and my son-in-laws.
That sounds like a lot of fun, Roy. I'm actually wanting to get into hunting, but I'm a bow hunter, not a rifle hunter. I don't know if I'd have the same luck you would have getting two birds with one arrow, but it might be something to try. I'm not sure.
Now that's tall tale.
Roy, what made you decide to compete in the Tall Tales contest today?
Well, I decided to way back when we started out in the club, and that's where I got involved. I just feel that all clubs should be involved in the contest. The Toastmasters program there for everyone, and Yankton is all involved in contest since I've known it, and we didn't have anybody up in Mitchell that wanted to compete. So as the president of that club right now, I just felt, say, maybe I can set an example and get some encouraged people there. There's some great speakers in that club and in that area and division. So I just took it on myself to carry through. I did this speech, a little different version of it quite some time ago. And it was a pathways of research your topic. And I used that as how I went in to figure out how do you put together a tall tale instead of having a feeling that you're lying. That isn't exactly what, it's just a method of exaggeration. And I put that together a long time ago. And then when it came to contest time, it was like, well, say, why don't I just take this speech and carry it on? And that's what I did.
Well, I'm glad you did, Roy. I really enjoyed watching it today. I got just one last question for you. You put on here what inspires you the most, and you said associating with people with a positive attitude. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Oh, that is absolutely the warm spot in my heart when I see that. And that's the one thing in both of our Toastmasters clubs that I see is the positive attitude. The Mitchell Club, the Yankton Club, and here even in the district, I just see such a positive attitude and a camaraderie and respect for everybody. I love that kind of atmosphere. I used to go to meetings, and I'm an insurance agent. One of the agents was always having negative comments about this and that. And I told, there was about 3 or 4 of us that would travel together. So I don't want to travel with him anymore because that's no fun. I don't like negative talk. So I guess that's just kind of my heart. I like to be around people that are bubbly and positive and live that kind of a lifestyle.
Thank you very much, Roy. Great job today.
Thank you, Wes.
Our next contestant was Christine Glenn. Christine, can you please join me? Hi, Christine, would you mind just introducing yourself, how long you've been in Toastmasters, where you reside, what club you're with?
I am a member of Club Med, which is in Billings, Montana. It's associated with the hospital. We don't have any beaches, unfortunately, in Montana. I've been in Toastmasters almost 2 years. I joined right before the pandemic started, so I have not yet spoken in person. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm hoping we get to that point. Just over Zoom.
Fantastic. Well, same question I had for Roy. What made you decide to compete in the Tall Tales contest this year?
I am not a very creative person, I don't think, but our club president, she was trying to get people motivated and just said, well, you don't have to compete, just do it for fun. So we had a whole session of Tall Tales, a meeting based on that. And I actually came up with one I liked, and I just ended up keeping going forward with it. So that's how I ended up participating.
That's fantastic. I'm glad you did today. I see on here under notable accomplishments, you had former Air Force Space Command officer. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yes, I really was an Air Force Space Command officer. I joined the Air Force when I was in my 20s and flew satellites in Colorado.
Wow, that sounds like a fantastic job.
Yeah, it's interesting. I ended up getting more involved in software and command and control, and turns out I love telemetry. Who knew? It's kind of weird.
I also see on here under what inspires you the most. I thought this was really, really cool. You said seeing ordinary people affect extraordinary change in their lives or the lives of those around them. Can you share a little bit more about that?
I think if you look underneath the covers of every person, you find these amazing things that they've done. And it takes a bit of time just to see it. But I see examples of it all the time around me in people from all walks of life. And it inspires me when I see others doing it, and it makes me want to do it myself. And I like helping people, and especially when it bears some dividends and benefits and they actually change their lives, and it's exciting. Brings me joy.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for your speech today. Great job.
Thanks.
Our next contestant is Barb Steiner. Barb, can you join me, please?
Yes.
Hey, Barb, would you just introduce yourself, please? How long you've been in Toastmasters, where you live, and what club you're with?
Okay. Well, I belong to the High Nooners Toastmasters Club in Bismarck, North Dakota. And I actually joined Toastmasters in 1997 when I lived in Fargo. So I've been in Toastmasters for quite a while.
Same question I asked the others, Barb. What made you to compete in the Tall Tales contest this year?
Well, our VP of Education encouraged the members to participate. We had 6 participants, and it was so much fun because everyone did such an excellent job. And I actually did not place, but the other, the winners had other commitments. And because I was inspired by them, I thought, you know what, I'm going to try the next level because it was just, I had so much fun at the club level.
Well, that's awesome. Again, I'm very glad that you did. It was a great job today. I see here under interests, you have down cooking. What's your favorite thing to cook, and what's the best thing you've ever cooked?
Oh, I enjoyed cooking German dishes, but I don't cook them that often. And a lot of them have to do with dough, which are probably not that healthy. But one of the favorite dishes of my family is, it's called Käsnip. And all it is dough. And then you put dry cured cottage cheese mixed with egg, and you can put a little salt and pepper in there. You boil it, and then you smother it with butter and some breadcrumbs, and it's incredible. So I really enjoy German dishes. But the other thing is I enjoy cooking simple things that don't have a lot of ingredients, just as long as they taste good and the other people enjoy eating them, that's good enough for me.
You know, Barb, I'm a cook myself, and I agree with you there. That dish you described sounds fantastic. You'll have to email me that recipe later. Under what inspires you? Again, I love Toastmasters because they always have just beautiful minds. You put on here, people have overcome adversity, and people who by what they do make a difference in others people's lives. Can you share just a little bit more by what you mean?
Yeah, so I am inspired by people who have experienced, it may be a death in the family, it may be another tragedy that they've had, they experienced, but they don't let it turn them bitter, or they learn from that experience and just grow. And sometimes they take that experience, reach out to other people that have experienced that same adversity. And I am so inspired by people that make a difference in other people's lives, even though it may be something very small. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but just as long as you think about other people, or every day you try to do maybe a random act of kindness, you have no idea what effect that will have on another person. And that person may in turn do something for another person.
That is fantastic, Barb. I love that. I got to see a speech just here recently, and one of the things I remember from it is they said that if your focus is always on what you can get, you'll never have enough. But if you focus on what you can give, you will never
Yeah.
run out.
Yes.
Thank you very much today. It was
Oh.
great to get to know you. Good job.
Thank you.
Our next contestant was Brian Logsdon. Brian, unfortunately, did have another commitment that he had to run off to, so he will not be doing an interview today. Megan Jeromechek. Megan, are you there?
I am here.
Hi, Megan. Can you introduce yourself real quick? How long have you been in Toastmasters? Where are you from and what club?
Yes, so I have been in Toastmasters for just over 2 years. I am a part of the Bold and Blue Club in Fargo, North Dakota. So that's where I live. And yeah, I've started with that club and have enjoyed being a part of it.
Well, we're glad you're here today. Again, same question. Can you tell us what made you decide to compete in the contest this year?
Yeah, I did the contest for the first time last year and I participated in the impromptu contest and it's fun. When I was in high school, I did competitive speech. So I've always kind of enjoyed that process of writing speeches, memorizing, presenting. And so it just felt like a fun challenge. Fun fact, my dad participated in Tall Tales many years ago. He was in a Bismarck club and he was a winner at the district level. So I felt like, hey, I might have a little bit of a legacy to continue on.
Very good. Well, I'm glad you competed today. I see on here you like to do a little bit of traveling yourself. You mentioned that you're planning to circumvent the world. I'm assuming that that's going to be material for a future speech. So I won't ask you to talk about that. But
Yes.
What has been the best place you've ever been? What destination has left the most impact on you?
I would definitely say that Hawaii has been probably one of my favorite places to visit. I've been lucky enough to go there twice. But the first time I visited, I was sort of living there, but I was staying there for about 3 months. And it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. I love the consistent weather of, warm, sunny weather. I love the ocean, just that there's fruit and vegetables absolutely everywhere. You could live off of the land and it's just so beautiful. There was a lot of really cool adventures I got to do while I was in Hawaii, hiking to a volcano lava flow and going to waterfalls and snorkeling with manta rays, just things that I'll remember for the rest of my life. And so that's one of my favorite places. And I hope I can continue to visit tropical places around the world, but I do enjoying being in nice warm weather and near a beach.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I've never been to Hawaii myself, but I've heard that if you have Kevlar tires, you can go mountain biking down the volcanoes.
Oh my gosh.
So
wow.
I don't know if you're into mountain biking or not, but if you go back, that might be something to try.
Yeah, that sounds incredible.
You put a favorite quote on here. I want to read it. It says, "As yourself, what is really important, and then have the courage to build your life around your answer." Can you explain that? Why is that your favorite quote?
Yeah, what I like about that is it's a quote about just living with intention and purpose. And, I think it can be easy to, I'm young and figuring life out until I don't have any, I have lots of life experiences to live, but where I've felt I've gotten the most out of life is when I've done things that, whether it's, even if following my job path, that I'm doing something that I'm really passionate about. And I think when you're passionate about something, you're going to be a lot more happy and positive and kind of spread that energy to those around you. And so if everybody did that, imagine the kind of world that we would live in. We would all be spreading that kind of energy. And so that quote always stood out to me, is having the courage to do that.
It's an amazing perspective. Thank you for sharing that with us today. And thank you for competing in the contest. It was great getting to know you. Good job.
Thank you so much.
And then our final contestant today was Jeremy Screwness. Jeremy, can you join me?
Sure.
Jeremy, mind just introducing yourself? How long have you been in Toastmasters? Where do you live and what club are you with?
Sure. I'm with 1294 in Yankton, but I live in Sioux Falls. I lived in Yankton for quite a number of years and joined Toastmasters. Gosh, I always forget exactly how long ago, probably close to about 10, 12 years ago, I joined Toastmasters, moved up to Sioux Falls to get some access to autism therapy for my kids. and took a little hiatus from Toastmasters. And then when this whole Zoom thing started coming online again, I thought, the Saturday morning meeting really works well with my schedule. And so I jumped back in and rejoined the Yankton Club, and I've been enjoying that ever since.
Very good. Well, welcome. Great job here today. I see on here on one of your interests is biking. Is that mountain biking, road biking, both? What do you like to do?
Mostly road. I have a mountain bike, but I don't ride that too terribly often. I do road biking, and in Sioux Falls right now, we are doing a 100 miles, 100 days challenge. When COVID was starting it up, our mayor, Ten Haken, noticed that people were just kind of cooped up and going kind of stir crazy, really, and himself included. So he encouraged everyone to move 100 miles in 100 days, whether that's biking, hiking, walking, running, however you want to do it. I joined that up and have done that every summer, more than 100 miles on a bicycle. And this year I want to do a century. So do 100 miles in one day, just to have a little fun, see if I can. It's arduous, but to see if I can do it and just push myself and challenge myself to make something like that happen.
That's fantastic. I used to be a biker. I say used to because it's probably been 10 years since I've actually dusted off my bike. And I know what you mean. 100 miles. That's an accomplishment for sure. So it sounds like road biking, not mountain biking. You probably don't have Kevlar tires or volcanoes in your future.
No, I have some sort of very good tires, but probably not good enough to withstand lava flows.
Fair enough. I see on here you also play guitar. What kind of music do you play?
A little bit of everything. Right now, actually, as soon as I'm done with this, I am headed off to play in a mariachi band, which I really didn't want to play until I found out it was a paying gig. And then I decided that, that's always wanted to play that kind of music. And I started it in with that in Sioux Falls, and the group that I'm with is we're not getting paid for this one, but we're doing a mariachi Sunday tomorrow morning. So we're getting the final bits and pieces all ready for that to have a little fun. And of course, we've got some Cinco de Mayo and other things coming up in the summer. And other than that, I play in my church praise band. So then that covers the gambit for everything from rock, pop, country, whatever style of music we want to play in. And the praise band director and I have a pretty good connection musically, so he can tell me, I'm looking at this one, I want a Boston style or an AC/DC style or a country style or whatever, and we can usually kind of bang it out and make it happen.
Wow, sounds like you're a very talented guy. What's the hardest song you've ever learned to play?
Devil Went Down to Georgia on the mandolin.
On the mandolin? Oh.
The mandolin, yeah.
Holy cow. We have a quote on here. I want to read this one too. This one made me laugh when I saw it. So I'm very interested in why this one resonates with you. It says, every time you are inclined to write the word very, substitute it with damn. Your editor will take it out, by Mark Twain.
The full quote was, your editor will take it out and your writing will appear exactly as it should be. And his philosophy was the word very is an unnecessary word, because either you can cut that word out and have that word have the word that follows very stand on its own and be its own word, or maybe you should select a different word other than that was a very good speech, that was an excellent speech, or that speech was top notch, something to that effect. So I applied that to Toastmasters, and unfortunately, when I introduced that quote to my club, instead of them having internal editors in their brain that would take the word very out, I just turned my club into damn good swearers. But I'm not giving them on a quixotic quest to make it happen.
I might have to try that. That's pretty awesome. Last thing I see on here that I thought was really cool, Jeremy, is you like seeing your kids accomplish their goals, which is awesome. Any father, I think any parent, definitely would love to see their kids accomplish their goals. I know I do. How many kids do you have?
I have two boys. They're both on the autism spectrum, and that's mostly my younger was the impetus for moving up to Sioux Falls to get him to some act that we didn't have in Yankton. And they're both have their little quirks. So my oldest is super good at maps, and we've actually got him connected with a whole bunch of city engineers. And it's always funny when we go on tours on the city engineering buildings and facilities. They always want to get him to sit in the tractor trailer or the snow plow or for the dump truck or whatever, and he's not interested in that one bit. He wants to look at the maps and the computer programs, and he wants to tell them what road construction projects will be completed at what time. So that's where he's operating at. And my youngest, I can give him any date out of the calendar year, past, present, future, or whatever date, and he will be able to just draws in the air with his hand for a second, and he can tell me what day of the week that day on the calendar is. And I'm trying to figure out what I can hang on that hook, that cognitive hook, that is something more than a parlor trick. But he's still having a blast with that, and we're having a lot of fun getting those things accomplished.
That's fantastic, Jeremy. You sound like a really good dad. Thank you for competing today. Great job. That does conclude our interviews for today. I do see that our judge has come back. And that does complete our contest for the day then too. Would everybody please give our contestants one more round of applause for a job well done? Thank you to all of our judges, chief judge, timers, officiants. Without you, we wouldn't be able to make these contests happen, and anybody else in the background who may have helped out here today. Please stick around 2 o'clock. We will be opening up our Pathways room, where Angela Meisman will be there to answer questions about the Pathways program. This will be an open office forum where people can come and go as they please. And then we will be revealing the winners of our Tall Tales contest, as well as the international contest later this evening at 4 o'clock after our keynote address by International Director, Region 4, Harold Osmondson. We hope to see you all there. Thank you and have a great afternoon.